here. Okay. Can everyone see and hear me well? I know it's probably the laptop connection is a little bit slow. And this is my backup laptop. Guys, I'm sorry that I'm late, number one. I'm about 15 minutes late and it's all my fault. Um, just if someone in the chat can let me know. Yeah, loud and clear. Great. Everything worked fine. I logged in this morning and everything was fine. And I had set up the link for the live and tested the microphone, tested the camera, but as be it, it can always happen. So I'll share a picture that shows both my desktop and the primary laptop at some point started to being asking to be updated. And they were like, they're not even, the desktop's at 24%. I don't even know where the other one is. So anyways, regardless, let's hope that I can hear Eliam because that was the problem that I logged out first. I'm going to have Eliam join us. I came across Iris Dew in one of the Facebook groups, and I saw the ad for it. And as it be with the name of Iris, I couldn't stop myself from looking into it. I bought a bottle. I think I had my bottle on the way, and Eliam had posted something about I don't know what, but I had commented on it, and it's like I'm excited to get my bottle. Then we got in touch like that, and now I'm waiting for a few more from the house. Without further ado, ladies and gents, I'm adding Eliam to the stage. Let's welcome Eliam.
Hello, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you well. Can you hear?
Yes, I can hear you perfectly.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I don't know.
Don't be. I mean, I've been having technical issues all day. I was just talking to my partners, like Photoshop's not working on me today. Klaviyo, nothing's working. So I think it's probably the full moon or something. I don't know. Who knows?
You might be right because it was full moon yesterday. I remember. Or is it today? I'm not 100% sure. Anyways, thanks for giving us your time and thanks for joining us. I really, really appreciate that. Even with all these kind of technical issues, I know we had to postpone once because we were both sick. I think you said you were sick and I was sick too at the time. So anyways, now that it's all past, well, we shall survive.
Exactly.
So with all of that, so let's get right into it. Tell us, Eliam, a little bit about yourself. Give us an introduction, whatever you may like, background.
Yeah. So I mean, my full name is Eliam Puente, hence the name of the brand House of Puente, which is my last name. I was born in Havana, Cuba, but I grew up in the United States, mostly in Florida, and I lived about 10 years in Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
And 3 years ago, just over 3 years ago, my partner and I decided, we wanted to do something completely different, and we decided to move here to Spain. So I live in the north of Spain, which is a little different from the rest because when I tell people I live in Spain, they instantly think Barcelona, Mediterranean beaches. It's a little different here. It's very lush here, very green. It rains a lot, so it kind of reminds me of Seattle in a way. The weather's very similar.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a little colder, a little chillier, a little damper, but it's also just naturally just gorgeous, and the coastline is gorgeous, and it's violent at times, which makes it even more beautiful. So it's a different Spain for sure.
So what would be the temperature like these days then?
So it's been around between 8 to 12 Celsius. So it's not too bad. It doesn't get too cold. And it doesn't get too hot either. Summertime, I think the max we've experienced here is maybe 30 degrees, and that's on the hottest day, just one day.
Okay, guys, write down travel destination. Because that sounds like a good destination for travel. Really, the summer's not that bad. Are you enjoying living in Spain?
Yeah, I'm enjoying it a lot. It's a beautiful culture. The people here are super nice. They're very welcoming. I live in an extremely small village. I mean, basically mostly everyone knows each other. So it's funny and cute because you'll go down to the grocery store and sure enough, there's the chance that you're going to stop 5 or 6 times to talk to somebody. So, so something that would take you maybe 10, 15 minutes to get to the grocery store takes you now half an hour maybe because you're chatting with people. But it's
Like a social
adorable. Yeah, it feels good.
good. So, tell us a little bit about like your interest in perfumery. Was it something that came to you like always was in your mind? Was it something came to you later in life? Tell us a little bit about it. Where did it
Well,
all
it's quite
start?
yeah, well, it's quite interesting because it came quite late in life. I didn't get interested in perfumery until I was in my mid 20s or so.
Mhm.
And it kind of happened by accident because growing up, I was always a one fragrance bottle at a time type of guy. I knew nothing about the perfume world in general. My mom was quite allergic to various things and very sensitive to smell, so she never wore anything. So I don't have experiences of, oh yeah, she wore Chanel or anything like
Mhm.
that. So it kind of just came to me by accident. I had moved to Port Angeles, Washington, which is about 2 hours from Seattle. And while I was living there, being a small city and not knowing anyone, I was always looking for something creative to do because my background is in creative arts, either visual art or graphic design.
Mhm.
And back then, I didn't have the beard, so the lifestyle there was kind of do your own, do it yourself type of thing with natural ingredients.
Mhm.
So I decided, I wanted to try to do an aftershave for myself.
Oh,
And that was my first introduction to essential oils. And I still remember the three essential oils I first got. It was vetiver,
mhm.
Himalayan cedar, and lemon. And when I smelled those, I was like, "Oh my god, this is gorgeous!" And I didn't even know what vetiver was at the time.
Mm.
I just bought it because it sounded cool. I was like, the word
Mhm.
vetiver just sounded interesting. And then when I experienced those essences, it was just kind of like the rabbit hole. I started collecting more and more essential oils and went online and did a lot of research online on perfumery and read some books. And slowly but surely, I'm 42 now.
Mm.
So that's been what, 15 or more years just studying perfumery. And I started this brand of House of Puente in 2022. So it's only been a little over 2 years.
Mm.
So
So
it's taken me
you
that long to really get to know perfumery and understand it, to be comfortable enough to say, okay, I want to share this with the world now.
so you're mostly self-taught, or have, sorry, I'm just noticing that I left the door open, which is kind of that's the background. But anyways, so you're mostly self-taught in terms of like the perfumery things, or any kind of formal courses you've taken or taken or anything like that.
No, no formal courses. The most formal course, it's not even a course, but the most formal training I can think of is when I started. I connected with another perfumer. Her
Hmm.
name is Christy Michelle from House of Matriarch,
Hmm.
and we became extremely close friends. She's a self-taught perfumer too, but she already had been in the business for several years.
Hmm.
So that was kind of like a chance to really learn something new. And she taught me a lot, and I worked directly with her. I even shipped for her for a while. So I
Nice.
was able to kind of get that experience of filling bottles and,
Hmm.
and, packaging and all that. So it was a great experience, but that's the closest that I can think of that you would say it's formal in a
Hmm.
way.
Mm. Okay. Um, and then so tell me like what was it though? Like what moment was it that you said, okay, I'm just gonna do this? Are you doing this for a living, or you have another job like that as well?
At the moment, I'm doing it for the living. Yeah, I'm doing it full time. Yeah,
And
it's
so,
keeping me
what was
quite
it that
busy.
made you decide this is like, well, yeah, it's gonna look be a lot of work, but what was it that made you decide this is it, that this is what I'm gonna be doing, like as work wise? Like, what was the moment? Like, do you remember, like, or it was just like gradually kind of?
Well, it was kind of gradual. At first, it was kind of a hobby. Of course,
Mm.
you're interested in the subject and you start working on it, and eventually, I think it's when I got a job in Seattle at this small boutique that sold niche perfumes.
Mm.
was called Blackbird, and they had a men's clothing store, and right next to it, they had what they called the apothecary, which is where they
Mhm.
sold the perfumes. And that was my exposure to brands like Histoire de Parfum
Mhm.
and Mona Diorio
Mhm.
and Comme des Garçons and all
Mhm.
these other brands that I wasn't too familiar with because
Mhm.
studying I had done was just strictly to the essential oils and
Right.
things and
Right.
classic things like Chanel and Guerlain
Mhm.
and all that. Once I got into that store though and started working there and started selling perfumes, then I kind of knew it's like, okay, yeah, this is what I want to do. But
Mm.
lo and behold, of course, that still took a long time before that actually happened. But it was
Mhm.
that first stepping stone
Mhm.
of confirmation of, yeah, this is what I love. This is what I want to do.
Do you think any of those houses, like either be Chanel or Guerlain, and or anything else that you have kind of tried at the beginning, do you think any of those houses have inspired you? I'm not talking about inspired perfumes, but like in terms of the style, like something that you had envisioned. Do you think there was any sort of like connection with any of those houses that kind of inspired your work and then creating your perfumes?
Yeah, I definitely do. Not only because I thought the perfumes were beautiful. My first experience with Shalimar was like, this is amazing.
Mm,
But it was just the history you go to the websites, you read a little bit about the history.
mhm,
Back then, the Guerlain website was more full of history. I think now it's
mm,
more geared towards commercial after LVMH bought them out.
mm,
Um, but I would go on the website and just kind of read the history of
mm,
in this year they did this with this
mm,
ingredient, and it became, you know, known as so and so, and they created the first Fougere, and they created the first this,
mm,
and they created the
mm,
first that, and then just the imagery and the pictures. And I've always kind of had like a love affair with like early 1900s, and
mm.
so yeah, it influenced a lot. That's for sure.
So, like, and by no means, I'm not just even kind of remotely suggesting that, but when I smell your perfumes, it takes me back to that era, like a lot of them. Like it's just, I feel like, ooh, and it's kind of odd to like smell anything new that any new perfumes coming up or from the houses, the newer houses, something that would take me back like to that era or just give me the same feeling. And I'm like, that's part of the reason I was so excited, and I probably overdid a little bit of in purchasing, but anyway, in that trying things, and I was like, "Oh my god, like, this is exciting." It's not like a lot of mainstream or things that I see these days in the market, so that's kind of why I'm asking that whether they had a role in that, and then it's such a beautiful composition, and I don't know how many I got from you now, like, I had the Irish stew. Did I order I don't know how many I've ordered. I think I've ordered a bunch, but anyways.
You ordered the Havana and the Chipelia recently. I remember that because you told me about it.
But then I
Um,
got some 15 mLs with them too, right? Did I order that? I
I
think I
believe
ordered a
I
set
have
of
to check.
50 mLs.
Yeah, they're 50 mLs, the bottles themselves, but
No, no,
sometimes I'll.
the 15 ml, like, a travel sets that you have, like, 3 of
Oh,
them.
okay.
I think
Yeah.
I ordered that one too for 3
Okay.
of the scents that I like. Anyways, so,
Yeah, that's right.
regardless.
Because you made an order with I think it was the Chiprelia with a few 15 mLs. Yeah,
Right,
correct.
right, right, right. Alright, so let's talk about, we asked some of the questions that I kind of wrote down here so I can remember. So, what was the hardest part for you, like to start this, like to start kind of blending things? Was it the learning? Was it the connections? Was it the material? Like, what was the hardest part, would you say, in this whole kind of becoming a perfumer and having a house?
Hmm. Well, there were several challenges. One of them is the learning part, because especially if you go it on your own, there's limited resources to what you can learn. And most of what you learn is from other small indie perfumers, which tend to have their own way of doing things, which is,
Mhm,
I think, that's the beauty of the indie perfume space, is we tend to do things differently.
mhm,
um, so that was difficult. Financially, of course, that's always difficult too, because at that time I was working at a job,
mhm,
and a lot of these essential oils are quite expensive.
mhm,
So I wanted the best. I wanted to use the absolute best for my perfumes, and I didn't feel like learning with something less than the best was the right way to go because I wanted to have experience with the best.
Mhm.
So sourcing these materials, learning about them, finding out what's good quality, what's not, and how to blend them. Because the thing about perfumery is you can blend a perfume and think it's amazing,
Mhm.
and as it ages, it changes on you.
Yeah.
And when it changes on you, it may not be what you want anymore. So then
Mhm.
you have to go back and readjust until
Mhm.
you find the perfect formula balance.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
that's always quite difficult as well.
And then on the way, did you have anyone to kind of give you feedback on the perfumes that you were making? Was there anyone from Indian niche community that was, or maybe other that was supporting you in that, like to like almost kind of looking at you and like your product and kind of giving you feedback on what should or should not be done?
Yeah, I mean, to my luck, within the year of working for that Blackbird company,
Mhm.
is when I met Christy Michelle, because the company, the store would like making like little shows or parties for niche perfumers of the area
Mhm.
of the Seattle and Washington area, and she was one of them. So she
Mhm.
lives, I think, yeah, she still lives in close to Seattle, at least. She still lives in Washington State. Um, so within that year, I met her, and of course we connected. We clicked right away. We became like extremely close friends. I consider
Awesome.
her basically the sister I never had, and so she taught me a lot. Like, you know, I was able to go to her place of work
Mhm.
and just kind of tinker around with like hundreds of different essences that
Oh,
I wouldn't
no.
have even been able to buy at the moment because I didn't even know they existed, or they were
Mhm.
prohibitively expensive at
Mhm.
the moment for me.
Mhm.
So that opened the door a lot to exploring and working and learning from her how to
Mhm.
blend and how to let them mature and how to revisit them and how to test them
Mhm.
correctly. So yeah.
Mm. That is a local support is another thing, right? Like that's that's a really an added bonus to have someone who has access to all of those things and it can be challenging, right? So then you know, coming up with the brand, like how did you like where did you get the inspirations about making them? What were the first what was the first perfume that you created
For the brand for House of
for the brand?
Puente, it was Medusa.
Medusa. Okay.
Yeah.
And where how do you find inspirations to make the perfumes? Like, is it a moment in time? Is it kind of memory that you have, or is it just a concept?
It can come from anywhere. Like, I kind of just let a muse show up wherever it needs to show up and either work with it or not. With Medusa, it was the story of Medusa that was a big point of inspiration, but it was
Mm-hmm.
also the ingredients themselves. When I envisioned what I would think Medusa would smell like, I thought of a really deep chypre like perfume,
Hmm.
but not necessarily 100% chypre, because there's like no bergamot in Medusa at all, and that's one of the cornerstones of the chypre. But I
Hmm.
still worked with the deeper notes that are found in chypres, like vetiver and of course oak moss. There's plenty of oak moss in Medusa as well.
Hmm.
But to make it really interesting, I used a hefty dose of natural civet,
Hmm.
which is a natural musk.
Hmm.
And that was kind of an interesting ingredient to work with because first, I mean, I absolutely love the animal musks, but for the sake of not using ingredients that hurt animals, I try not to use any of those. But in this case, I found a an artisan. In fact, they're in Canada as well,
Whoa.
which they work with a family farm in Ethiopia directly with them, and he reinvests into their farm. And so I'm like, okay, I know where this is
Who's
coming
that?
from.
Like, actually, can you tell or no?
His yeah. His name is, because yeah, if it starts with a D. Now it's escaping me. It's either David or Daniel or something. It's Apothecary Gardens. I know the website's
Oh,
called Apothecary Gardens. So check them out because they have all sorts of animal ingredients
mhm.
that he sources from different places, and he's very respectful to not only the business, but the animals themselves. So that intrigued me, and I said, okay, this is a good way of being able to use civet because I know where it's coming from, I know where it's being sourced, I know he's redirecting a lot of that money into that family farm to improve their lives, to improve their farm, and to make it more sustainable. So I was like, okay, I can be part of this, and I decided to use civet, the real thing, in Medusa.
Oh, absolutely beautiful. I don't know what I did with my samples because I have like a sea of samples. I don't Medusa might not be here, but I remember smelling it, and at some point I was like, "Oh, what is Medusa about this?" Like, because it was very pretty at the beginning, and
Yeah.
and and then all of a sudden that civet hit me, and I'm like, "Oh, there she is. There she is.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
Medusa coming out." Awesome.
Yeah, that part that you said, that it's very pretty in the beginning, and then it goes into that, kind of fits with the story, because the story of Medusa is, it's believed, or it's told as, she was this beautiful
Mhm,
creature,
mhm,
and then
mhm.
she was turned into that beast.
Correct,
So
correct.
that's kind of why Medusa takes you through these beautiful jasmine, orange blossom
Mhm,
florals, and then kind of takes you deeper into this cave of earthy vetiver and oak moss, and then of course the civet, which makes it carnal and animal and sophisticated and sensual.
beautiful. What was the next? So did you come up to just one perfume at the beginning, or like you launched few?
Yeah, I launched Medusa first. That was in September, but by January I had two other perfumes ready to go.
Mhm,
Those were Vespertine, which is the tuberose
mhm,
perfume, and Iris Dew, which
mhm,
some people call it Edie Stew because it's a French word,
mhm,
which means sweet iris, and
mhm,
that's become our flagship perfume. That's our
mhm,
bestseller. That's the one that people love, and they love each perfume has its market and its people, but I would say that's our front runner.
mhm. And so you actually launched the brand and smack dab middle of COVID, right? Like it was 2022.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so how was do you think that affected like the success of brand or made it more difficult in some ways? Like, do you think that had anything to do with like contributed in any way to negative or positive to development of
I,
the brand?
I think it contributed positively because
Mhm,
people were staying more at home. They were
mhm,
socializing less. They
mhm,
wanted to find different experiences, and of course, if you love perfumery, that's an experience on its own. Just wearing it at home for yourself, which I
mhm,
love. That people like to do that. I have some customers that even buy my perfumes just to wear it to bed to sleep. Okay,
mhm,
that works. So I think it affected it positively because that's what people were looking for. And even though, yes, it's more convenient to go to a store and smell a perfume there and choose, with today's internet um, mentality, you can just order a discovery set, you have it delivered to your
mhm,
house. You can study them as long as you need to until you decide which one works best for you, and then you buy a bottle then.
mhm.
So I think it was positive.
What made you kind of like? Here's the bottle of the Iris Dew. If people haven't seen it, I mean, I'm sure you have, but this is
Oh
a
yeah,
bottle of
I have
Iris Dew.
I have one too. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yes. What was
And
the?
I have your bottle of Havana right here,
Yay!
actually. So that's going to
Oh,
be going out very soon.
I can't wait. I can't wait. So what was the inspiration for Iris Stew or Iris Stew? Like, what was the kind of what made you think that I'm gonna make? Do you like Iris? Like, is there a favorite note that you have?
Iris would be my favorite note. Yeah, it's
Mm,
Iris and Jasmine's would probably be the two most favorite notes. With Iris Dew, the inspiration completely came from the ingredient.
mm,
And the idea behind it is to create an iris perfume with lots and lots of natural iris.
mhm,
Because the thing about iris is it's extremely expensive. It's one of the most
mm,
expensive
mm,
ingredients in perfumery. So most of the iris perfumes that you smell out there have very little to no iris. They mimic it through synthetics and other ingredients, which is fine. I have nothing against that. But I wanted to bring to the table an iris perfume with lots of the real thing so you can get the full experience of what iris smells like. So I've heard a lot of people saying, "Oh, what I love about Iris Dew is it's not lipsticky." It's like, okay,
Mhm.
well, that's because the synthetics that they use to create iris do tend to have that cosmetic lipsticky
Mhm.
scent. Real iris isn't like that. Real
Yeah.
iris is powdery, it's soft, it's almost milky in a way. It's like a dried milk,
Mhm.
and it's very elegant. It's one of the most beautiful and elegant ingredients, I think, in
Mhm.
perfumery. So I
Mhm.
wanted to showcase that fully in the iris dew.
Yeah. I remember, like, they took us some grass to, this field, and this I don't know if that's just a field to I mean, it's used for perfumery purposes, I think, and they showed us the rhizomes of the iris, plant. And it's almost and I have a picture, like, you're holding it out to my face, and it looks like a beard, like a long beard,
Yeah.
and how beautifully it smelled, really, because they don't you don't use the petals of the iris flower, but it's obviously it's very expensive material.
Yeah,
Um,
it's expensive because it's hard to extract, and it's also it the process to produce the scent is lengthy. It takes several years for the
mhm,
so if you dig the iris root right out of the
mhm.
ground and you smell it, it's not going to really smell like what we
Yeah,
use in perfumery.
you
You
have
need to
to be
clean
dry.
it up and dry it for
Yeah,
years for
yeah.
that scent to really
Mhm.
come out.
And then so where do you, like, usually source your ingredients? Like, let's say the iris or any other, like, your natural ingredients. Where would you source it? Is it from France or different countries, I guess?
It's all different countries. I have sources that, for example, there's this company called Biolans, which
Mm,
dedicates themselves to sourcing gorgeous materials from around the world.
mm, mm,
Their iris has always been spectacular. I've been studying perfumery with the same iris
mm,
extract for as long as I can remember, and
mhm.
batch after batch, the iris has been immaculate. So I
Wow.
decided that's my iris, and that's the one I use.
Yeah.
But other ingredients, they come from all around the world. I
Mm,
do work with some artisans that
mhm,
make really small batches or have connections of people that
mhm,
make really small batches of unique things.
mhm.
And those are the things that I tend to use in the limited exclusive, like the
Right.
Chyprelia
Mhm,
and the Havana. When I get to
mhm.
source those materials, that's why I kind of keep those as exclusive scents, because they're more difficult to produce on a ongoing basis, because I'm using ingredients that aren't always available. So it's kind of
Yeah,
like I will make a batch and I'll keep making a batch as long as I have those ingredients. But one day they might say, hey, it's not going to be available for a long time. So
right,
that perfume
right,
stops existing for a while.
right, right. I mean, I know Bobby, are you, like, trolling me in the comments? He's, like, saying that I'm on a first name basis with all the delivery drivers in town. That is absolutely cracked. And soon she will have a drone pad built on top of her house. That's possible. Um, Definitely they know when I'm on vacation because they're like, when I come back, they're like, "Oh, we haven't come by a while." But anyways, so then tell me a little bit about, like, ga you have something, you had a perfume that you have discontinued, and someone asked me to ask you, why did you discontinue that, and can you bring it back?
Oh, the only one I can think of that's completely discontinued that I've never brought back is Eau de Fougère. Could it be that one?
No, it's another name. Like, John, if you're watching here, let me know because I had it and I had it in my note in my computer, but now this everything disappeared. I don't think it was that one. Hold on, actually, let me see. It had a specific name that I kind of like. What is this? I've never even heard of it. But let's see here. Uh, do you have any other ones that it's kind of like it comes in like a limited basis?
Well, there was originally I created Eden, which was the orange blossom
Hmm.
perfume that I have, as a
Hmm.
limited edition, because I was using a neroli which that did come from one of these sources that they made
Hmm.
one batch and it was spectacular, and they've never made that neroli ever again.
Hmm.
And that one was supposed to just be a one-time thing, but
Hmm.
after many requests, I decided to bring it back with new ingredients. Of course, it
Hmm.
wasn't the same exact formula, but it was the same idea.
Mhm,
So I created a new batch of Eden,
mhm,
and maybe a year or so later, if I remember correctly, I revisited it again and
mhm,
reformulated it again to
mhm.
to the Eden that we have. Yeah, that one's morphed a few times. So that's the Eden we have now, which is if you have the sample of Eden, that's the newer one. That one's based on more on Orange Blossom Absolute with
Mhm.
Neroli.
Oh, so good. I love this one. I think what he mentioned was Z Z Zoticus?
Oh, Zodicos. Oh,
Mhm.
yes, yes, yes. Okay. Yeah, see, that's how that's how little I think about that one. It was a good scent. I know people like it. I created it maybe in the first year of being around. It was meant to be more of my take on a mainstream scent, right? Because it's built that way. It's built with
Mm,
citruses, with lots of
mm,
hedione, some ambroxan, lots of ambroxan actually. Um, and it has its people that like it.
yeah.
The reason I haven't brought it back is I don't think it fits with what
Mm.
my goals are.
Yeah, I was
It
going to
fe-
say, like, it would be hard to fit that with the rest of your line.
right. It felt too mainstream and too modern
Mm,
for the brand aesthetics. Once
mm,
once I established that brand aesthetic, that's when I want to keep making perfumes that do remind you of the
mhm,
past, of the glory days of perfumery,
mhm,
that have a vintage feel. They still feel modern. You can
mhm,
still wear them today. It's not something
mhm,
that's going to make you
mhm,
smell dated,
mhm,
but has that allure of the classics as well. And
mhm.
Zodicos just didn't fit in that
Okay, so that's completely gone? You don't have a batch
completely.
lying around somewhere? No. Okay.
Nope.
Just asking because I know I'm gonna get the question later. So tell us a little bit about the Gallivant and Virescence.
Okay. Well, Virescence came out March of last year. Gallivant is newer. Virescence is my take on the idea of something that's green, a green scent. I wanted to create a classic aldehydic that had a green touch to it
Mhm,
because of the
mhm,
galbanum,
mhm,
but still also had lots and lots of jasmine sambac and lots of vetiver and some musks it's as well. So it's kind of like this clean, green, fresh. To me, it kind of reminds me of like when spring is just starting to come up and you have the little
mhm,
green pieces out there, that kind of hope
mhm,
of something new and
mhm,
fresh. That's what Virescence,
mhm,
to me, it's like. To other people, it might be completely different. I've heard people that say that it smells very leathery to them,
mhm.
and
Really?
that could be the case for some people.
Mm,
I find it more green and more fresh,
mm. Yeah.
um, and classic, and it has that vetiver, which kind of has that depth to it.
Mhm,
So that's what that perfume was. But then Gallivant was my latest. So Gallivant's my latest permanent release, which came
mm,
out in October when we redid our rebranding, we redid our website,
mhm,
and that is pure on sandalwood. The amount of sandalwood oil in that perfume is extremely high. It's like over 20% of the
wow.
perfume formula is just pure sandalwood. And it's a sandalwood that I sometimes source it from India and sometimes I source it from New Caledonia,
Mhm, mhm,
depending on which one is
mhm,
available, but they're very similar, the two. Um, and that's supposed to be a pure sandalwood scent. I wanted it to be extremely creamy because I love that
mhm,
aspect of sandalwood.
mhm,
So very, very, very creamy. It does have a freshness to it. I paired it with lots of ylang ylang, so you have that
yeah,
big burst of floral in the beginning. But then as that settles, you start getting that really creamy sandalwood. I think it's becoming the second favorite after Iris Dew. I mean, maybe over time it might
mhm.
even take over Iris Dew's
So,
number one
like,
spot.
like sandalwood material, raw material, the first time I smelled it in grass, I was like, "Whoa, what is this?" And then it's like, whatever they had there was quite smoky, like really,
Oh
really
yeah,
smoky. For a second, it was like opening of it, it's almost like a gasoline smell, and then it kind of settles down a little bit to kind of more woody aspects of it. But but then, they had some stuff for us as the students in the fridge, but then there was a fridge downstairs you could go get some stuff from. And I realized that there was a difference between the material downstairs and upstairs. And the sandalwood that they had down there was quite a bit different, like in terms of the scent profile. Like, and what I'm smelling in this one, as you mentioned, is quite creamy, and that brings up that like a lot of ylang ylang. There's a little bit of a touch, a bit of sweetness. I think it's sweeter than pretty much any other perfumes that you have really on the line,
Right.
isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. It's
There's-
that. It's the creaminess of the sandalwood really brought out the sweetness of the ylang
Yeah.
ylang in that one.
Yeah.
And then there's also vanilla in it as well,
Mhm. Mhm.
and some tonka bean as well. So which are technically they tend to be sweeter notes. Um, so yeah, that I think that was probably the sweetest one of the of of the whole
Whole line.
collection at the moment.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that you said that, because that's the thing about perfumery. That's one of the challenges too. As I learned perfumery, is you say sandalwood, but there's sandalwood in various different countries. They could
Right.
be different species of sandalwood, and they will all smell different. So, like you
Right.
said, some of them can be smokier. Aging has a huge difference on sandalwood. A freshly extracted sandalwood will smell one way. You smell a sandalwood oil that has been aging for 20, 30, 40 years, it's going to smell different.
Mhm. It's the same thing when, well, like they, with all sorts of different types of lavender or like different types of orange blossom. If you are kind of in tune to the scent, I mean, you could pretty much pick up the difference. But someone in the comments that Renato is asking, what advice would you give for aspiring perfumers? Good luck.
Patience. Lot, lots and lots and lots of patience. If you really love it and you really want to do it, I'm not gonna lie, it is challenging.
Mhm.
That's what's going to really push you and show you if you really love it or not, because
Mhm.
it's going to require a lot of patience, a lot of trials,
Mhm.
errors, failures. I
Mhm.
could I could write books on how many failures I've done in perfumery before you got
Well,
something right. So just keep at it and don't get discouraged if you run into problems, because it's that's the status quo until you get it right.
yeah. And do you think, like, when I was looking into this a little bit more, I feel like there are information, I don't know, sources of information. It's almost like a little bit hidden, like from, like, it's not as easily accessible about all the different source of information, or the forums, or their whatever that might be. You really have to kind of dig in deep to find that kind of information, and it's a little bit word of mouth kind of thing. Even though we are kind of living in an age that everything's out there in the internet, I find it's a little bit kind of reserved. I don't know if it's a gatekeeping or what, but it is sometimes difficult to get
I
all
don't,
that information.
I don't think it's gatekeeping. I think it's more. I mean, my experience uh, of an ingredient or a perfume is going to be completely different than yours. So I think
Mhm.
people are sharing their opinion on something, or what they think it should be like, or how they think that it should be done, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that's the right way or the
Yeah.
only way.
Mhm. Mhm.
So it's kind of like a puzzle. You get information from all sorts of places. You get information from online, from YouTube, from books, and just kind of see how they fit in to make a picture. And then the the most you're going to learn is just by doing it and doing it and doing it. Get to know those ingredients
Mhm.
individually. Wear
Mhm.
them sometimes by themselves. Just put some in alcohol and just wear it by itself, just so you get the feel of that ingredient by itself,
Mhm.
and then slowly blend it with something else to see how that changes.
Mhm.
So it's quite complex. It's a fascinating world for sure.
Mhm. Did you ever, like, because you started with kind of essential oils, but did you ever get into collecting at all, like perfumes?
I started, yes. I don't have a. I mean, I envy a lot of collectors. I see some of your collections. It's like, oh my god,
You don't
that's
envy. No, no, no.
gorgeous.
That's
No,
really.
I actually do. But I think I fall into that same category as you might have heard other perfumers say. We make them, but we barely ever wear them. And
Mm,
I think that kind of fits with me too. I mean, I smell stuff all day, every day,
mm,
and most of the time, I want to have my nose ready to pick up something different and new. So if I'm wearing something, that's going to affect how that
mm,
experience is.
mm,
So I do wear perfumes. I wear some of my own,
mhm,
especially when I'm making something new to test it.
Mhm.
and my partner's my little guinea pig. Sometimes I'll make him wear it if he likes it, so I can smell it on him. But I do have a collection. I don't know how many bottles I have. I'm maybe 60. I know that means like nothing to you collectors, but I what I try to really collect is things that you can't get anymore. So,
Mm,
for example, I do have my X-ray of Shalimar from the 80s, and I have
mm,
my bottle of Mitsuko,
mm,
that are hard
mhm.
to find in good quality.
Correct.
So I try to put my money towards those because
Mm,
they serve as inspiration for me, and
mhm,
they're little gems that you can't really get anymore. So,
mm. I'm curious about what you have. Do you have a favorite house outside
um,
your house?
niche or mainstream, or does it matter?
Doesn't matter.
That's a hard one. I mean, this might sound a little biased because she's a friend of mine, but I would say House of Matriarchs is amazing. So the perfumes that
Mhm,
she makes are just exquisite and completely different than anything else. Something that's more mainstream available because of their history, I would say Guerlain, and I
mhm,
do have a lot of respect for Chanel. In
mhm,
fact, I smelled some of their exclusives recently, and I
mhm.
good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
They
so yeah.
have some good stuff, but now that you mentioned House of Matriarch like this, I am curious. I have not tried anything from House of Matriarch. I have to look into that. Not that I really need any more bottles here, but um, I need to try some of that. So, uh,
Well, if you reach out to her to buy samples or whatever, tell her I sent you.
oh, thank you. Will
She'll
do.
hook you up.
Will do. Thank you very much. So now I'm curious to know this. Like, it's when with over the last few years, with the kind of explosion of houses and the perfumery, and like there are so many more brands now out there. How do you even try to stay current, or you do your own thing? You know what I mean? Like, are you like following what's happening in the perfume community? What's the trend? What's not the trend? Not that I'm saying that you're kind of following that in the perfumes or translates to what you're producing, but in general, do you stay current with that?
I mean, yeah, I do. I mean, I follow other brands just to see kind of what they're up to,
Mhm,
and um, various niche brands that I kind of have interest in. Maybe not so much, but their perfumes, but just the way they conduct business to kind of see how they connect with customers and find new customers. And a business aspect, then yes, I
mhm,
kind of am more interested in knowing what's going on.
mhm,
But when it comes to perfume making, yeah, I just kind of do my thing. I know what I like. I know it's
mhm,
connected to a lot of the classic feel of perfumery, which is what
mhm,
I love. And I actually think that's kind of missing in today's field because, like you say, there's so many brands. They're all focused on selling as much as possible, and they're making
mhm,
uh, what I would say is people pleaser type of perfumes. They
mhm,
almost all smell similar because
mhm,
they're all full of ethyl vanillin and ambroxan because that's what sells really well.
mhm,
Um, there's enough of that, so I don't feel the need to be one of those. So I
mhm.
just kind of do my thing, and you know, I find my people.
So what is your vision for the brand though, eventually? Do you have a vision? Do you see, what would you like to see over the next 10 years for your brand? Are you
I mean,
gonna yeah.
I would like it to continue going the direction it's going, where the focus of the perfumes is creating something beautiful and luxurious.
Mhm,
I
mhm,
think to make a perfume for the sake of making one that's strong and loud is erroneous for me. I want to make something that's first and foremost beautiful, and I want to make them with the highest quality ingredients, which tend to be, in my case, or what I believe, tend to be the naturals. And
mhm,
I think that's what differs House of Puente from a lot of other brands is
mhm, mhm,
we use a very large amount of naturals. Other brands might say they do, and I'm not saying that they're lying or not, but the quality or quantity is quite low. Um,
mhm,
I
mhm.
want to showcase those ingredients at full throttle in my perfumes.
Yeah, and it's transparent. Like, as soon as if you like, if one has an experience with naturals versus synthetics, like not I'm gonna use that word I know that there's anyways, anyone has an experience with that. You know, as soon as you spray these perfumes, it does, you know that. Like it's just obvious that it has more natural ingredients in them. Like for sure, it comes across.
Yeah, they're just richer. There's no way of getting around it. One A natural ingredient will contain hundreds of molecules, which makes
Mm,
it very rich and luxurious. A synthetic is just one molecule. And this, I mean, it might sound like I'm saying negative things about synthetics. I'm not. They have their place. I use them as needed in these perfumes, but the
mhm.
highlight needs to be the naturals in mine.
Yeah, for sure. And what I like about naturals is that um, and sometimes don't get me wrong, like I also do want to smell the same thing from the beginning to end of a perfume. Like that's what I want to do that day, but that's fine.
Yeah.
But what I like about naturals is that they're ever changing. They're kind of like the transition period because as you said, it's like bunch of there are many more molecules, and then that becomes it manifests itself differently in different transition periods of a perfume, and that makes it that absolutely beautiful for sure.
Yeah,
Um,
they tell a story, right? They
right.
take you from the beginning to the end. So when you're reading a book, you're not reading the same thing over and over and over again. Again, there has to be a progression of a plot. So, and that's
Yes.
kind of how naturals do, and that's what I love about them so much.
Mhm. Um, so uh, tell me, what is the most rewarding part of being a perfumer? Like, is it the creating a scent that you are satisfied with and you love? Or is it the feedback that you receive, the satisfaction of the customers? What would be the most rewarding part of it that just keeps you
Honestly,
going?
honestly, the most rewarding part is when I get to explore new scents, new oils, new extracts that
Mm,
I've never been able to smell before. Those first experiences with something new. To me, that's the most rewarding part. That's what keeps me going. And that's
mhm,
what keeps my inspiration going. If I'm not smelling new things, then I'm I'll get into that block of, okay, well, what do I make next? I need something to inspire me for.
mm,
Um, so, for example, Iris Dew, I'll say this little secret because it's about to come out maybe by tomorrow anyway. But I'm going to be releasing a special edition of Iris Dew, and it contains oud and
mm.
vanilla absolute.
Ooh,
And it's because of that oud that inspired me to create that perfume.
what kind of oud we're talking about?
It's an
Can
oud
you
from
tell?
Yeah, it's an oud from Thailand. I loved it because it has this kind of almost fruity, leathery richness to it. And I
Mm,
thought it worked beautifully with the iris. Since iris dew already has a little bit of a sweetness to it, this kind of gives it that real intense depth of oud
mm,
with the iris. And then when you add vanilla absolute to it, it kind of makes the two sing together, and it gives it kind of
mm.
that creamy deliciousness to it. And there's also some cacao absolute in it as well.
Oh, wow, I'm very curious now about it. Probably if you're in comments, you hear what he said, because I know he likes a lot of, he likes oud, and I'm actually curious. To be honest, I wasn't an oud person, or I thought I was not an oud person, and people who are hearing me now, they're gonna probably drop. And over time, one of my good friends have been sending me perfumes that contain oud, I'm an actual oud, and they, I've started changing my mind a little bit. I think it's if it's composed in a certain way, I can enjoy it. It's just that certain type of oud, and if it's composed in a certain way, I'm not enjoying it, and that's what I am actually. It's not like changing my mind. It's just like expanding my horizon a little bit. So I'm really curious to see what this one um, is going to be like. Sanjini is asking, can Eliam tell us about his most inspiring scent memory?
My most inspiring scent memory. Um, I mean, it would have to be in the beginning of me working with perfumery. Like I had mentioned, I had been ordering essential oils, but these were essential oils that were easily sourced. They weren't
Mm,
very expensive. Lemon oils, lavender, ylang ylang, cedarwood, things like that. When I upgraded from that and started collecting oils that were much more expensive, My first oil, which I was crazy to smell, was Jasmine Absolute from Egypt.
Mhm.
And that just blew my mind completely. So that's one of the most interesting experiences I had. And the second one would be when I first tried natural civet. I had smelled the synthetics and I was like, ooh, this is like really, really bad in a stinky way. I was like, I don't get the allure of this. But once I smelled the real thing, I was like, oh, okay.
Mm.
It's still funky, it's still dirty, but there was something about it that made you want to keep smelling it.
Yeah, there's that, like, I like to call it a skank. Something
Right?
it's kind of it's kind of like, what's this about? But it's kind of good and keeps you going back. But I can never get over smelling indol for the first time. I think that was the most repulsive thing that I'd ever smelled in my life.
Yeah.
It,
So
it's
indole by itself comes in a crystal form.
Mhm.
So because it's so strong, I dilute it to 1% in alcohol, and that's what I use
Mm.
in my perfumes. But sure enough, the day that it comes to having to dilute it, when I'm done, the whole place smells like indole.
Your partner is like, please leave, do this somewhere else.
Yeah, yeah. So I get what you mean, but it used correctly in the right
Mhm.
dose. It's
Yeah,
it's it's gorgeous. In
yeah.
fact, you would when you were just smelling Eden
Mhm.
on your
Mhm.
arm, there's a lot of indole in there.
Wow.
There's
Yeah.
a ton of it.
Right. Like so that's the amazing part. And a lot of actually like synthetics. And I felt like when we were doing like our scent test and on their own, they were like ugh. And then when you would put like in a composition, it would give them like a really, really nice touch to the end. That was like the most surprising thing for me to something that really absolutely stank
Mm,
and into kind of composition. It just adds that much more to the perfume. It's almost like, I compare it to baking a little bit. You kind of have an idea what's going to be like, but you really don't know until it comes out of the oven. In this
right?
case, also, it's just like kind of lasts a little bit, and I like that element of surprise versus cooking. And I
Yeah,
like baking a little bit more than cooking just for that. Anyways,
yeah.
Sanjini is asking if you could collaborate with any perfumer, alive or dead, who would it be and why?
Oh,
That's
okay. Let's pick with the live ones first because I have a few on my list. And that's kind of secretly a dream of mine too. It's like if as the brand continues to grow,
Mhm,
if one of these perfumes would have me, perfumers would have me, I would totally say, please make a perfume for House of Puente.
mhm,
Dominique Ropion,
mhm,
Jean-Claude Elena.
mhm.
Um, now I forgot his name. He's the guy that does the Eris perfumes.
Oh,
Um, Antoine Lee.
Antoine, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I love his work as well. I think those are the three. Of course,
Mhm,
my friend Christine Michelle. I would love for her
yeah,
to work with a perfume for me. Dead ones, Jacques Guerlain, of course, for sure, and Ernest Beau. But
mhm.
that's never going to happen.
Well, maybe in another.
Yeah.
So, tell me about like, are you finding anything in the world of perfumery, fracom, or anything, any trends that um, you find surprising, whether in a good way or a bad way?
Hmm. I haven't been very inspired with most of the new trends. I think they've kind of been very similar over and over again.
Mhm.
Um, the only thing I found quite interesting, and I was like, maybe I'll give it a stab, but I still haven't found anything that wows me to make something. Is when was it cherry or raspberry or maybe even both became a trend? I think it was
Cherry,
cherry.
yeah.
Yeah, cherry. So that's kind of an interesting smell to me because first it has to be synthetic. There's no real natural cherry extract that I know of.
Mhm.
But I still found it interesting enough to, okay, maybe, making something with cherry would be interesting. But then I smelled so many cherry scents and none of them really inspired me. So,
Yeah, and it's hard for me. I love I like cherry is my favorite fruit, like of all time. Um, in fact, I have like all my childhood pictures with bowls and bowls of cherry. And as soon as cherry becomes available here, I am always buying. But for me, the scent of the cherry that I'm looking for is the smell of the cherry closest to the pit with that little bit of a woodiness in it, like in the background. I just don't want the fruit or fruit juice smell of cherry, but I want that like woody kind of deep layers into it, like a black cherry. Now that's what I'm looking for, and it's really really hard to come by any scents that transpire that. Like it's a
Right,
lot of it is
right.
like cough syrup cherry.
That's why I kind of was when it became a trend. I don't know if it's still a trend, but when it was trendy, I'm like, okay, this is kind of interesting because like you, I like the taste and the smell of cherries, but I don't find them sweet smelling like the perfumes are. Because
Yeah,
all the cherry perfumes, like the black cherry, they're just a lot of them I smelled were just overly sweet. Even the Guerlain one, which was the what was it?
cherry wood.
Le Petit Robe Noir, but there was like a black cherry
Yeah,
version of it.
that's yeah,
I None of it did it for me.
yeah.
So unless I find ingredients, natural or synthetic, that kind of produce that almost more bitter, woodier
Mm-hmm.
cherry note, uh, it's it's lost on me.
Mm. I wonder, like, would they be like they don't do extraction of fruit, obviously. I don't know what it is that would make a cherry accord or something like that. But
Yeah.
anyways, there are probably so many ways. And also, Saint Jeannie says tomato leaf, like, and how natural. So I am just I've been digging tomato leaf recently, and it's a gorgeous smell, like something that I would think about before. I would say, ooh, what's that? Like brother, ooh. But now, I've been digging it in a few perfumes, and I think one of the Joy perfumes or Joie or whatever you say that has the tomato leaf in it, and it's absolutely gorgeous. So,
No.
are there any kind of so tell us a little bit about your exclusives, those two that we didn't talk about. Let's talk about those two.
Okay. Well, the exclusives, it's kind of like my little playground. They're perfumes that I can make with ingredients that aren't always available to me, because, like I said, it's either coming from an artisan that makes them in very small batches, or something I found that may not be made anymore.
Mhm.
So it's kind of like this little playground where I can make perfumes with those ingredients. Whereas my permanent collection, those are perfumes that need to always be produced over and over
Mhm.
and over again, unless something major happens, right? Like one of my producers just stops making something, but that's a lot less. There's a lot less chances of that happening than with these limited exclusives. So with Chyprelia, for example, it's the oak moss. It's all about the oak moss on that one,
Mhm.
and oak moss, you can find oak moss anywhere, but all of the oak moss that exists now is tampered with because they remove it to make it more IFRA compliant.
Mhm.
The oak moss I use in Chyprelia has nothing removed. It's completely
Mhm.
artisan created.
Mhm.
I still use it within the IFRA guidelines,
Mhm.
but you're getting the real thing versus the
Mhm.
manipulated thing.
Mhm.
And that adds an extra layer of depth and
Mhm.
inkiness to it that it wouldn't have without it. Other
Mhm.
ingredients in Chyprelia, for example, even though it's not written as one of the main notes, is I use Gardenia Absolute. And
Oh.
Gardenia Absolute is what marries the lemon and
Mhm.
the jasmine and the
Yeah.
peach note all together, because Gardenia has aspects of all three.
Yeah.
Gardenia Absolute is another ingredient that's quite difficult to source
Mhm.
at a good quality.
Mhm.
They exist. You can buy Gardenia Absolute, but a lot of it's really bad. It's not
Mhm.
it's not to my liking. So when one of my producers has the good stuff, then I get that and use it in Chyprelia.
Oh, is it?
Um,
I thought gardenia is always an accord, isn't it? Or is it?
what was that?
I thought gardenia is always an accord. It's not. It's not.
No, it's extracted.
Oh, it is
I mean,
correct.
yes, most of the Gardenia out there is an accord. It's
Oh,
it's
okay.
it's a synthetic or a mixture of accord, because Gardenia Absolute is hard to source, and
Hard to source. Oh.
it's very expensive, and
Mm,
the good quality stuff, it's hard to find.
mm,
Um, but there's some of that in Chyprelia, which marries all those ingredients together. In Havana, I found an aged tobacco extract, which unfortunately I don't think I can get anymore. So
mm,
I'm not sure what the future of Havana is anymore. So you did a good job at ordering it because it's out of stock now, and I'm not sure when I can make it, if I can make it again.
Oh.
Um, but that's the beauty of the limited editions. I can, if I want to make Havana again and I can't find that specific tobacco, if I find another tobacco that I really enjoy, then
Mhm.
I'll make a Havana based off of that tobacco, and that's what that batch would be about.
Um, there are a couple questions, and I'll just probably we'll have to stop 'cause we're coming up to 1 hour. Which new materials are you excited to work with? Is there anything new that you're working with?
Yeah, well, there's several things I'm working with, but the new materials that I've been exposed to lately, which I really like, is an extract of opoponax, which is going to
Mhm.
make its debut in this Irish Dew Special Edition that I was talking about. But there's other perfumes that I'm working with that opoponax. It's an opoponax resin,
Mhm.
which is different from the essential oil. It's a lot richer and it's almost like black, and it's actually a hard material. It has to be diluted to be used. I'm quite excited about that. I'm exploring more of the world of oud, even though I've explored a lot, but it's been a
Mhm.
few years and I kind of want to see what's new with oud. So yeah, there's a lot of new things in the horizon that I'm working with.
Are you just a one-man show, like into like bottling and everything, or you have your perfumers bottled elsewhere,
No,
producing?
it's all done in house.
Oh wow.
Me, and I do have some help occasionally, but it's mostly all me. So yeah.
Um, I guess Sage is saying, oh, Sage is a fan of TRNP fragrances. Theon is the most lovely human creator. Are you familiar with that brand?
I'm familiar with the brand. I've never smelled any of the perfumes though, but I've heard good
Yeah.
things about them.
Yeah,
TRNP,
I
yeah.
think Sage, did I sell you my bottle of Avant Gardenia? Are you the same Sage? Because people have different IDs and everywhere. But I
Hmm.
had a bottle of Avant Gardenia, and that was one of the most beautiful things that I had ever smelled. Like it's a beautiful, beautiful gardenia. Anyhow, anything else that you would like to your audience or your people in Fracom or whatever the world to know about you?
About
Real.
me specifically, I mean, I would more like to direct it towards the world of perfumery in general. There's a lot of interest in perfumery and a lot of growing interest in niche perfumes. I would like people to start exploring more of the indie brands like myself and like TRNP and House of Matriarch and brands like that because I feel like we're making something special in perfumery,
Mhm.
and there's a lot of niche perfume brands out there that are quite large that
Mhm.
promise luxury, and they're not really delivering it when you
Mhm.
really look at what they're
Mhm.
producing. So if you want to experience something unique and beautiful, I say, look at a lot of us indie brands
Mhm.
that's what we specialize in.
Are you gonna be at Exans?
Not this year, no,
Not
but
this year.
eventually.
Okay. Okay. Sounds good. I'm hearing there's another one in uh, Florence. Florence. I don't know how to say the city, but and that's most geared toward businesses, and that's I feel like a lot of people find it more kind of business and kind of communication and web, kind of
Yeah, I
net.
think this year, I mean, like last year, where the business is more focused on, because I do have a business partner and I work with him, and he's the one that helping me in the business end of things to
Mhm.
understand it better because he's a business guy. That's what he does, and I'm doing all the creative stuff.
Mhm.
So I think like last year and this year, we're still kind of. I feel like we're still putting everything together,
Mhm.
slowly building
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
So I think by next year we'll be ready to start being part of Essence and all the other groups that show up throughout the year. There's a few. There's a few of them actually.
Yeah, there's a few of them. I think there's a big one in Dubai, and I'm hearing there's one in France, and I think, and well, there's a Scent Explorer in US, but it's in comparison, it's very much smaller. But anyhow, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate that you gave us your time, and I really enjoyed the conversation with you.
Yeah.
And thanks everyone who in the chat who listened and asked questions. I wish you best of luck with everything. I'm looking forward to see what's going to be released tomorrow with that Iris and you combo that you dropped. And we'll go from there. And I'm really, really excited about my package. Well, hopefully.
Yeah. Like I said, well, this is actually your bottle. So because I have a table completely full of orders that are still needing to go out. And if anyone's listening, that's one of my customers, I appreciate your patience 100%. The company has grown a lot in the last few months. It's me running most of it. But yes, this is your actual bottle. I'm gonna fill your Schipperle tomorrow and get that wrapped, and it should be by Monday. It will be on the way to you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. You take care.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
You too. Bye.
In nomine Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti.